Okay, I swear I'm going somewhere with this. You've seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail, and obviously this is a weird topic to cover. Boss Baby sucks. There's no disagreement about it, we're on the same page. This movie is plain and boring, it has a predictable ending, same message every other basic movie has, and the plot is mid. It's tolerable. On a scale between Sharknado and Everything Everywhere All at Once is plopped right into the forgettable curve in the pits. It shouldn't exist, not in my watch history, and certainly not in your memories. Yet here I am, because I offered it, and by gods did you all gobble it up. Why would I put shit out onto a platter when I know it's all you will eat, just to spite me? I'm not a big fan of Boss Baby. Let me fix that. I'm not a fan whatsoever of Boss Baby. I think it's a stupid concept that they probably just spun together on a wheel. It's a filler movie. How I discovered this movie is that my friend and myself were having a sleepover one night and just happened to finish Tarot. Now, Tarot sucks as well, so we were in the mood for some bad movie binging. I myself wanted something more cartoony and bright because you could not see anything in Tarot, and started scrolling through cartoons before I stumbled upon it. The perfect addition to our terrible movie night binge. That's how I saw this movie. And we watched the next one too, which sucked even more, and I felt confident enough in my ability to tear a new one for daring to waste 2 hours of my life with its bullshit. In my attempts to make a whole video explaining why this movie is the bane of my existence, I decided to sit down and watch Boss Baby 1 to refresh myself on the topics of that movie before I started vomiting during the second. And through the second watch-through of Boss Baby with a critical eye, I started to see issues, problems, concerning signs. And then I realized the truth behind Boss Baby. This movie isn't about accepting your younger siblings, or letting go of past hatred over being fired. It's about something else entirely. This movie is about corporate abuse. This movie has the villain winning. The villain isn't the man who wanted to make eternal puppies, it's the corporation that brought this man to existence in the first place. He's only a residing effect of the real villain, a byproduct of the company and the hurt people it's left behind in its wake. Boss Baby is about a corporation cult. Okay guys, I promise I'm really going somewhere with this, but I need to take a step back and give a quick movie summary. I doubt many of you have actually watched the movie, and I encourage such behavior to continue and persist, so a movie summary is kind of required before we move on. Don't worry, you guys don't have to memorize this, there is no pop quiz. Boss Baby stars Timothy Leslie Templeton, a young 7-year-old child with an active imagination and a loving family. This is all suddenly taken away from him when a new baby brother is introduced in the form of a limo with the name of Theodore Lindsay Templeton, a name the first movie will never tell you. After Tim becomes more and more suspicious at the fact this suit-wearing baby just showed up without any parents warning him, he discovers his little brother can talk and has full cognitive function, who works for a place called Baby Corp. Their intent is to make sure babies get as much love as possible, and recently puppies have been stealing it all away. After finding out the owner of Puppy Co. is a previous Boss Baby who retained his memories and set out for revenge against the company that abandoned him for being lactose intolerant, they managed to defeat him and save the day. That's a very quick summary, and it's fine if you don't remember at the end of the day. Treat yourself and forget. The movie isn't fully centered around Baby Corp itself, it's more so focused on the two brothers as they discover their family in one another. I, however, chose to ignore this and put the practices of the company under a microscope. They are considered to be the good guys, the good company who wants babies to be loved and wants to save the world from the forever puppy. However, I don't think so. Now, let's take a step back, though, and truly analyze this company. We know this because Theo very clearly distinguishes how the company may go out of business and how money runs in the world. It's obvious from the design and intent of this corporation that it's an office job where memos and paperwork are prevalent. This is a for-profit business. They want all of the love and all of the money. From what we see in flashbacks into Baby Corp, the main structure of the building is centered around cubicle offices with a work dress code and things like printers, staplers, the typical office setup. The cubicles are set up in massive open areas that are practically an echo chamber. Do you know how overstimulating that environment could be to work in? That's a massive open floor just filled with babies crying, the sounds of typing, conversations, and who knows what else. If this was a 9-to-5 job, I might be able to tolerate it, but I don't think it is. We can see Baby Corp is clearly in the center of the baby-making process as a whole. Unless there's another area for baby workers to be given their own houses and apartments, I don't think they're provided with housing. There's even a designated nap time per sector, which indicates that they likely sleep in their office chairs instead of any home. The best we can assume is that there might be a crib sector in the workplace, but that means unless they're out on a mission like Theo is in the movie, they spend all of their lives within this building, on company property, under company time. If they nap, it's when the company says so. If they eat, it's what the company gives them. Their breaks are short and are even cut shorter when there's a crisis, which seems to make management more violent and prone to fires on the spot. If they're under a crisis and their sleep schedule is entirely dependent on the company's whims, who's to say the company just won't cut their sleep short and force them to work longer? Do they even have a 9-to-5 job schedule, or do they just work all day and sleep at night? Theo clearly tells Tim he doesn't have a home, so he clearly doesn't have anywhere to go to that isn't the office. His entire life is spent at this office building unless he's sent out on a mission, and even then he's still working. We can see from when he calls the babies for backup that they're on a call at a moment's notice, even if they're trying to blend in at home. Their breaks are allowed to be cut short on a boss's whim. Their environment is loud and bright with designated nap times. There's a constant threat of a boss being able to fire you at a moment's notice just because you're the messenger of bad news. The company lets you know right off the bat that you're replaceable. You are expendable. If you fail, you will be fired and replaced. This is a hostile, terrible work environment with a bad work ethic that keeps them suffocatingly busy. Sure, they have moments of fun, but everyone has their fun now and again at work, even if it does feel suffocating. Instead of a 9-to-5 with a home to decompress at, these bosses are just set to work for eternity, on a single location. A lot of them likely don't get the chance to leave. Imagine working at a desk job that enforces when you nap, when you're allowed to sleep, and when you're allowed to even leave the property. You don't have a home to return to outside of work. Instead, your whole life revolves around the company. Literally, your whole life up to this point has been the company. Not many would choose this career path, but if the pay and benefits are decent enough, some might. But that's the issue. None of these workers got the choice. The selection process for the company is shown within the first scene of the movie. Theo sticks out as a baby right from the start. He fumbles through every step of the way, his curious habits and unusual personality causing Theo to stick out amongst all of the children. They're quiet, they blend into one another, they easily fit into the gears of the system and thus normal society. These babies are considered lovable. Theo isn't like this. Theo stumbles his way through the first few minutes of life, not quite sticking in. He's a sore thumb who juts out, who fumbles at every step. When he reaches the end, we see all of these normal babies are carted off into families considered lovable by society. But Theo isn't. He doesn't fit into the expectations of society. He isn't the status quo. Just because of an arbitrary reason for not being ticklish on his stomach, he's determined unfit for love and acceptance. So Theo is carted away onto the other side, forced into a restrictive suit within seconds of being hired. When Theo lands, he's given a folder and a bottle of formula as an introduction into the office amidst a cubicle of thousands. Just another gear in the machine now. All throughout this scene, the machine determines where the babies fit, not an adult. He's given a thin folder and expected to simply figure it out. Can I point out how broken this selection is? The babies don't get a choice. They're simply selected from the moment they're born. Those who don't fit in, who don't conform to standards, are carted away to be used as props in a capitalist machine for profit. They aren't considered lovable just because they aren't ticklish. The worst part of the selection process is that the babies who get parents clearly get names. They get families, names, homes, and get to live their lives. Tim is one of those babies who got to revel in love and support. We can see the distinction between him and Theo, who is far removed from such notions. Theo doesn't even have a name in most of the movie. In fact, when he refers to himself, it's revealed that boss babies literally have numbers and letters assigned to them for names. In the beginning of the movie, he considers his name to be what the depths of Twitter would think is a good name. I think that's tragic. And yet, listen to how Theo talks about the selection process. He calls it the select special few, as if they're chosen ones, handpicked for an important task because of their raw talent. We can clearly see that this isn't the case at all. Theo has good management talent, But other babies we encounter don't have that much talent in comparison. There's suck-ups, a baby who's more muscle than management, and a baby who can't even read. Theo talks about this as if it's an honor, a rare occurrence that makes him special and unique. The only reason Theo would think this is because the company would have told him this and drilled it into his mind. They're born, dragged into company work due to arbitrary means, and then propped up and lavished with compliments like they aren't the rest of the world, that they're special. This is a cult. This is what cults do. Their approach to vulnerable people who stick out in society, who cannot fit in due to genetics or personalities or any other reason. This company then chooses them, tells them praises about how they're special and above the rest. And in turn, this becomes a threat. Their only options for leaving this company building is to either be put onto a mission or be fired. This is a double-edged sword. On one hand, these people believe that they're the best of the best. They believe they were specially chosen when we all know it was just a machine that decided these children were unlovable and unfit to be in a family. And in this praise, they are inflated with high egos and superiority over everyone else. But the issue is that what they're praised for, what they're told makes them special, can be taken away at a moment's notice by the company. They can be fired if they fail, if they're deemed as useless. And they're cast out into the rest of society they're constantly told is beneath them, and are no longer one of the specials. I need to reiterate that this building, this work environment, is the only frame of reference these children have. For fuck's sake, they were literally just born moments before being hired. They have no prior experience with anything in life. If the company says that this is desirable, who are they to question it? These bosses are selected, thrown into suits and into work before they even have a chance to process it, and are propped up with compliments with a lingering reminder that those compliments become void if they underperform. By the time these people have a chance to process what exactly is expected of them, they have put too much effort into this and have likely been there long enough to understand that their only form of support can be taken away if deemed necessary. Mind you, promotions and this sense of privilege is all of the support these children get. They don't have families or friends outside of work. This is their entire support system. Consider the fact that these people have no life outside of work. These are boss babies. That's right. That's all they are. They don't have a neighborhood to go home and mingle. They don't have school to go make friends, and they don't have book clubs or any social gatherings outside of meetings. Their only options for any support is friends that they make at work while doing work. These children have no outside families to turn to whatsoever. They're dragged into this sort of environment with no outside options to lean upon for support. Their brief moments of bonding can easily be broken up if their boss demands it. Breaks can be shortened if the company deems it necessary for productivity. And most interactions are likely about work, considering that's the only thing these babies can reference. So even during social interactions, they're talking about paperwork or memos or topics that restrict them and their mindset to productivity. Let's take a step back and look at the company ladder. To be promoted to a high position to have your picture on a wall is seen as desirable, honorable, the best of the best. The issue is that in this sort of hierarchy, it encourages competition. After all, there's only one corner office, only one seat to be claimed. Consider what the villain's motive is. After being fired for being lactose intolerant, he's removed from the facility and cast aside into a normal life when someone younger is assigned to his position and has been working there ever since. The level of hostility this man must have felt throwing away his entire life ever since he was born to try and one-up Baby Corp says a lot about how much his time in that position stuck with him. How much resentment this man has over the fact that he got fired for a biological factor he can't even control. The work environment is thus a hostile one. It's not an environment where making friends is really encouraged, not when your goal is to be productive and rise the ranks. There's a select amount of chairs available for you to work up to. And we can see this by the way they lie about the villain's retirement, as if to preserve the sanctuary and perfection of the corner office. No one ever gets fired from there. They simply leave. But that position is just as fragile as the rest of them, simply covered in gold when it holds only shit. Another aspect of the social environment this work life has is the lacking emotional support. They have no friends or family to speak of. Emotional vulnerability would be difficult when you have no one close that you can open up to. You can't be emotional on work time, that'll decrease your productivity. The main scene that brings this to my concerns is the following scene. When Theo realizes that Tim is crying, listen to what he says.
Oh, have you been...
No.
Oh, where's HR when you need him?
Theo's first reaction is to ask for HR. HR is a branch of any company that deals with workplace issues. Obviously, people can bring complaints the workers have about others to the company, but HR is in no way fit to handle a crying child that isn't even technically employed at their company. Tim doesn't work there. It'd be illogical for Theo to simply shove him into HR over a disagreement with a party who doesn't even belong in the company. Which means that Theo's first instinct when he sees someone vulnerable is to punt them over to HR, a branch of the company that's likely very unfit to handle such a situation with the grace it deserves. This brings into question if HR is the employee's only emotional outlet. They don't have families or friends, as Theo clearly doesn't get along with any of the workers in the beginning, instead considering them underlings to simply order around for a mission. The movie makes it very clear several times that Theo's new family is the first and only one he's ever known. These workers have no chance to form any meaningful relationships within the safety to be vulnerable, and are instead directed to HR under such circumstances. But HR is a branch of the company. It's company-owned, with the company's safety and interests always center and first in their consideration. Their primary goal is to keep employees steady enough to be productive and functional. They are not mental health workers dedicated to making sure the employees are mentally stable enough to deter from this sort of work environment. They are not on the employee's side. The fact that one of Theo's instincts when he sees Tim crying is to mumble about HR is concerning. It's clear these sorts of situations are just handed over to HR. This is seen as an expected thing to do, as Theo clearly depends on HR for these sorts of situations. Theo depends on a company-owned branch who has the company's interests at heart for emotional support, when he himself has no outside connections. And it's clear that the missions these babies are sent on are very temporary. Theo fully intends to go to every mission without making a single connection, because the families get their minds wiped of all memories after the encounters. Theo is actually prevented by the company from forming bonds outside the workplace by their set rules for missions. The only way to form genuine bonds with people is to erase those memories from yourself through quitting and join their family, thus removing yourself from your honorable, chosen role and casting yourself down with the normals. It's very upfront in everything that happens from this movie that these babies only get the chance for a loving family or supportive friends once they've given up everything this company insists makes them special. And they keep these people from realizing it by having HR focus on stabilizing their emotions just enough. Now, what exactly does Baby Corp teach its workers? Obviously, we know quite a lot of things from the way the company functions based off of Theo's basic interactions with the movie. The world runs on money, and that love is important. Now, the first statement does hold weight, but the second is a good principle on paper. After all, love is important. Even if you don't feel romantic love, you still need platonic and familial love to flourish. Humans are naturally social creatures, despite the current environment making us lonelier than ever. We need love, even if it's sometimes hard to obtain or scary. However, what Baby Corp teaches is worry. You see, how the company demonstrates love is a thing to be worked for, earned through labor. Obviously, love is something you have to work on to grow, but Baby Corp sees it as another revenue stream more than what it really is. Baby Corp sees love as a competition. Them against puppies and kittens and all sorts of cute animals around the world. And we're confirmed that the villain of the story is still trying to take away baby love. It's a previous worker of the company. Consider this for a moment. The company is enforcing the law of limited love, that there is a finite amount of it in the world according to a single pie chart. Thus, it's an us against them situation. Babies versus puppies. Until you realize that the competition is solely based around Baby Corp. They are the cause. They are the ones who are pushing for a fight no other species realizes they're even participating in. The only reason the amount of love puppies receive becomes a problem is because Baby Corp's internal firing process and mismanagement of removing company property from old employees. This problem that caused Theo to be sent on this mission is entirely self-created by the company and does not exist anywhere else. We have no proof of what will happen to these babies if they get less love other than the fact Baby Corp simply desires it. And they continue to teach their staff that love is finite, that it needs to be earned through labor, and that 2 children are simply not enough for parents to love. This is obviously a very dangerous precedent to be teaching children. It's kind of ironic, really. The company makes them strive for the very thing the company keeps the workers from. Now, I need to get into what exactly causes this movie's whole final climactic, if you can call it that, final fight scene. The main substance the villain uses to make the Forever Puppy is the same secret formula that gives Theo his continued intelligence and youth. Obviously, this within itself wouldn't have any normal issues. The substance itself isn't shown as addictive by any means, so Theo has full control if he drinks it or not. They don't force him to drink it either. The liquid itself isn't the issue. It's what leads up to the sense of dependency on it. The mental pressure this company gives its workers I've already demonstrated, but we need to continue that train of thought into the baby formula. Through giving this immense pressure onto the babies about their supposed honorable traits, their perfect skills that allow them to be special and not like other girls, they've created an environment where the formula isn't seen as just a simple, cool liquid that gives them abilities. It's become a drink they've become dependent on. If they don't drink the formula, they lose their sense of identity. Imagine being a fully cognitive being, but if you miss your hourly dose of something, you begin to lose all sense of control. You babble, you cry, you can't talk, you don't know where you are and don't remember anything about anything. There's terror that drives Theo to chase for his formula, not just need. There's several times where Theo is clearly terrified of losing the formula for that outcome, especially when he's at risk for being fired. That mentality of needing to work for the company drips into the need for the formula, a formula that the company has full control over and can take away if they deem you unnecessary. They bombard these children with compliments of heroism and provide them with a substance that continues that sense of superiority. But the threat of losing it is very clearly dangled over their lives. This pressure creates a need for the formula the babies shouldn't have, causing Theo to react negatively when he's off his dose and turning back into what he believes is undesirable, despite it being what his actual age is. That leads me to my next point. These were literally infants who were just born, and are being raised with very strict ideals with no support system, family, or friends. These babies were just born seconds before they were hired. They have no frame of reference for the real world. But there's a very clear distinction between simply being told compared to actually experiencing it. These infants have no homes of their own, live in an open and sanitized workplace that uses baby toys as props for work, as if they're trying to remove the fun out of even the simplest of toys. These are children at the age where they don't know any better, who are told about how special and unique they are under very specific circumstances that the company can both provide and take away. They are eternally trapped at this age despite babies having literally the worst access to a lot of places. Considering how messy and loud babies can be, it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep your workers trapped at such an age. Yet, they aren't allowed to grow because babies are ultimately the most vulnerable form of life. And they're given the mental capacity to understand how tiny and helpless they are, and how they've been trapped at the age forever under the whims of a system that hired them from birth. Imagine that for a second. You've been grabbed at a very young age by a company you cannot comprehend. You're told that you, the viewer, are special. You're given this grand tale of how there's a best of the best, and that you are one of them, and have a mission to complete as a result. But as you grow to understand the company, you learn how it works. Promotion is always fought for, and positions can be hard to keep. Your constant employment is threatened every second, and your boss can fire you for another employee's ineptitude. And if you get fired, you lose access to the formula that helped you develop this personality and this life that you've built for yourself. Years of hard work lost in an instant just because one employee wasn't able to report back fast enough and you had to be the messenger. We can clearly see how this influences Theo. His very first instinct when he gets to the mission is to assert dominance and try to control the situation. He arrives in a limo, dances his way up to the front door, and seems extremely pleased about taking away attention from Tim. After all, this is what he's trained to do, to take love from others just because it's finite and because it's needed. In a new environment where competition for the job isn't really needed, he still fights for it anyway. It's Theo's natural response to new challenges. His first instinct is to fight the competition, to mock them and make it known who is in charge. to fight his way to the top of the food chain. This perspective begins to shift when Tim has an emotional vulnerability near Theo for the first time. This is something new Theo likely hasn't had many encounters with before. He was likely able to punch away these sorts of interactions with his coworkers because they were either his subordinates or he was used to using HR. For this situation, Theo has nothing. And for the first time in his life, Theo has somewhat of a heart-to-heart with someone that begins to open up his relationship to new understandings. And Tim continues to open up Theo to new experiences he's never had before. They begin to bond over fun things, begin to work together for a mutual goal in a less restrictive environment compared to the work life at Baby Corp. Tim's imagination and eager fascination with life itself begins to help Theo open up and consider new ideas in his life that Baby Corp would have never taught him. These built-in behaviors the company implemented into Theo continue, though. When he hurts people's feelings or breaks laws, he uses money to avoid emotional obligation. Theo and Tim continue to butt heads as Tim forces Theo to abide by some of the rules babies are expected to do, but at the same time, it gives Theo more leeway to simply exist as a child with less stress. He has an equal helping him now, an equal that he can't belittle because Tim isn't considered an employee. So Tim isn't really considered as a threat or a lesser than him as the time continues. What breaks Theo from this constant cycle of abuse from the corporation is a letter Tim sends him promising limitless love, the very thing the company demanded never exists. Only after leaving the company and learning to move past his ingrained beliefs that the company taught him does Theo finally find happiness. Baby Corp is a vile organization built on false ideals about profit who takes advantage of outcast members of society to trick them into eternal labor. The movie isn't about some old guy stealing candy from a baby. It's about a boy working under a capitalist cult hellfire escaping from an abusive environment after he realizes how they've been lying to him. And it's a movie about a talking baby with a scene that has very specific undertones despite both participants being 7 years old and a baby. Yeah, I'll let you decide how to interpret this scene. I hate it. I think everyone else does. For our sanity, we could put that scene into the box as shame with certain other things from shows and call it a day. Obviously, this movie is just about a really stupid theme and idea. I just created this conspiracy theory to endear it for my own sake. I don't recommend any of you watch this movie, or if you do, find a way to do it without financially supporting the people who created this. I'll look the other way while you figure that out. The writers probably just wrote this movie without much consideration for how this baby company functions. But frankly, I find it way funnier to think that this was indeed their intended outlook and that it was actually a smart movie about abusive capitalist cultists taking advantage of underage workers to turn a profit while forcing negative ideals into their head. Overall, this movie isn't about a cult, but I think it is, so I'm running with it. I'm going to make a review for Boss Baby 2 at some point, but fucking hell do I not want to. If you think this movie is bad, I cannot explain to you the dread that grows within me whenever I think about revisiting the second one. So I did this instead to set the precedent of sanity we should be expecting from me from here on out. I swear this video wasn't even supposed to exist, I just got a bit too bored during the first movie, so my mind started to run, and here we are. Thanks for watching, and enjoy this complimentary tinfoil hat on your way out.